If you're a Reiki practitioner, then for sure you heard about placing your hands on your chakras, or at least the areas that correspond to the chakras, the areas of the body that correspond to the primary chakras. But in traditional Japanese Reiki, there are no chakras. In fact, Reiki was never used taking into account the concept of chakras. That's because the metaphysical Japanese philosophy, and not only, had a different approach and had different levels on which to work with when it came to human spiritual evolution. Hi, I'm Vlad from ReikiScoop.com, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of chakras, Reiki, and how did Reiki work in a traditional way and what did it address? Was it chakras? Was there about any other energetic centers, any other levels? So with that being said, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share so that other Reiki enthusiasts may find content such as this one. Let's move on. So in traditional Reiki, Japanese traditional Reiki, there were no chakras. The chakras belong, origin-wise, as far as we know, to the Hindu metaphysical tradition or philosophy. And the oldest writings are about 1,100 years old. And they were quite a bit ambiguous. Now, there's a huge chance that the concept of chakras existed way before those first writings. I'm not sure I cannot say that for sure because obviously nobody has time traveled to verify that, but the oldest writings are about around 1,100 years old. That being said, why do we address chakras? And what if we should address something else in Reiki? Is there something more important? Well, first of all, let's get one thing out of the way. There is no wrong in addressing the chakras when practicing the Reiki self-treatment or treatment on others for that matter. That's because the chakras are vortexes of energy, vortexes through which vital and universal energy goes in and goes out. They are the interface through which we interact with the outside world. And they are governors of each area of the body. There are 7 primary chakras. I'm not going to go into detail about them. There's another video for that. So there are 7 primary chakras, and each one governs an area of the body when it comes to the physical organs, the muscles, the functions of the body. But there is a lot more to the chakras than that. They are also energetic gateways and gateways of consciousness. As time goes by, when you practice Reiki or any other spiritual practice, your Kundalini energy, your vital energy begins to rise and it accesses different levels of consciousness. And this progress is called evolution, spiritual evolution. But in Japanese traditional Reiki, again, there were no chakras. While it's nothing wrong to address the chakras in Reiki, the Japanese addressed the main parts of the body, the organs mainly. So, paradoxically, when you address those parts of the body, you also address the chakras. The intention matters here when it comes to placing your hands, because it's one thing to place your hands on the heart, let's say, as an organ, and another intention to place your hands on the heart chakra, which are 2 different things. The heart has its own chakra, but there's also the heart chakra, which governs a larger part of the body. Lungs, thymus gland, the heart as well. So there's a lot going on when we talk and we have the intention about placing our hands on the chakra. But beyond the idea that the Japanese used to place their hands on the main organs, the main areas of the body, the head, brain hemispheres, thyroid gland, thymus gland, heart, all the major organs and digestive system, there is another part that I'm not sure how many people talk about this. They should mention this more, especially Reiki teachers. That's because the Japanese traditional, metaphysical Japanese philosophy, and not only, also Chinese, mention 3 centers of power, in lack of a better term. 3 major centers, which are not exactly chakras. They do correspond to 3 chakras, but I'll get into that in a minute. 3 major centers. They are called tandens or dantiens. There is different names and the translation is not always good. So these are the 3 main psychic levels of the human energetic anatomy. But not only energetic anatomy, they have a spiritual role, beyond energetic role. And those are the mind, and this corresponds to the third eye chakra, the soul, which corresponds to the heart chakra, and the spirit, which corresponds to the sacral chakra. And these centers are not, again, in their perception, these were not chakras. These were centers of power. They were levels, the main levels of a building. You can visualize the main levels of a building in which you have families, you have things going on, you have imbalances, you have potentials, you have different things going, but they are part of the same building. But these levels, as with the chakras, they are levels of consciousness. So the mind in metaphysical Japanese, traditional metaphysical Reiki and philosophy, the mind addresses consciousness, addresses the connection with the divine, with something that's superior to the human body, something that's beyond our physical perception. The mind connects to the flow of universal life force energy, connects to a better level of perception, a healthy perception, connects to divine entities. The soul is the divine spark, which holds programs, which holds elements of purity. It's like the software that allows us to function in this world, and I have a video about that. Of course, the Japanese traditional Reiki and metaphysics, they didn't address them as such as this, like with the programs and entities. However, they did have quite a few notions regarding these three tandens or dantiens. And then we have the third one, we have the spirit, which is in Hindu philosophy, because we have in Hindu metaphysical philosophy as well, we have three levels. This is the spirit which reincarnates over the ages. And the Kundalini energy is the vital energy of this spirit. And the spirit holds, we can see later on from Carl Gustav Jung, it holds the shadow self, it holds the inner child, it holds the masculine and feminine elements, holds the maternal and paternal subpersonalities, things that need to be healed or need to be addressed at least and checked if they are in balance, if they are healed, if they are okay. Because all those elements from the inner self level are actually the main things that need to be addressed when not only evolving, but going deeper into healing oneself. And that's the sacral chakra area, the center that corresponds to the sacral chakra. Now, the question arises, shall we practice Reiki only on these three centers? Well, you can, and you can see how it feels and what happens if something happens. But I wouldn't just address these three centers unless you really want to, make an experiment in 10-15 minutes on each position. If you can hold your palms, send universal energy. Consider the back projection as well. So we can keep 10 minutes on each level, see what happens. Things will happen. But that being said, I am not sure if I should encourage that, because Reiki acts as a whole. You need to address the whole body. You need to address all those hand positions, not only the chakras. That's why usually when I present and teach Reiki, I explain, for beginners especially, there are three ways of approaching the Reiki hand positions. Either you use the chakra pattern, or you use the traditional Japanese hand positions, or you use a more intuitive way. You just place your hands where you feel there's need for universal energy. And personally, the way I like it is to use all three combined. I also address the chakras, I address the traditional hand positions, but I also address a more intuitive way of placing the hands. So, my point is, before we continue, I want to drop a quick reminder for those of you overwhelmed by scattered information about Reiki symbols. I remember jumping from books to forums, from old PDFs to blog posts, trying to piece together what each symbol meant and how to actually use it in a session. It felt more like chasing answers than deepening my practice. Eventually, I realized I need everything in one clear and practical place. That's how the Ultimate Reiki Symbols Guide came to life. I organized the most common 65 Reiki symbols into a single ready-to-use resource. You have their attributes and uses in one place so you can guide your sessions seamlessly without second guessing. It's still the guide I return to when I need insights, inspiration, and the optimum Reiki symbol for a certain situation. If you're tired of digging and want to spread more time practicing and less time searching, grab the digital copy on Reiki Scoop or the physical book on Amazon. Now, let's return to the video. Take into account the fact that there are 3 main psychic levels that are not considered chakras but are considered levels of consciousness. They are considered centers of power. And when I say power, I don't mean physical power, obviously. Power meaning in this case the most abundant flow of vital and universal energy that goes in and out, and the places that when you evolve, when you practice Reiki or other practice, doesn't have to always have to be Reiki, meditation, Theta healing, Qigong, whatever you resonate with, those 3 centers become stimulated, become activated. And when that happens, from the sacral place, for example, the Kundalini energy begins to rise. When you address the soul center, the soul becomes cleansed, whole, and expanded. When you address the mind, then you expand your consciousness. So those are the 3 most important levels that help one not only heal, but evolve from a spiritual perspective, change awareness, perception, open gateways for new opportunities, understand your role, connect to the divine energy, connect to divine entities, channel messages. That's why some people can channel Reiki systems. They can channel enough information to write entire books. So think about that. That means that there's at least this center, if not at least 2 of them actually, the soul and the mind, the consciousness, are vast, are quite open, and they have a vast amount of universal energy flowing and inspiration. Not to mention if all 3 are opened. So while, again, for the 10th time, while those are not exactly chakras, they are centers of energy. Now, considering that, again, we don't need only to address these 3 energy centers, these 3 power centers. But it's good to know that when you practice Reiki, you can spend a little more time with your hands, with your hand positions on those 3 levels, these 3 centers of power. 3 more minutes, 5 more minutes on this position. This position, if mobility allows you, flexibility allows you can place like this. And on the sacral area, the sacral area is below the navel, like 2 fingers, like half an inch, something like that. And the projection is the lumbar area, right? So those are the 3 major centers. There's a lot going on for each and every level, but to summarize everything, this is the level of the place that we are using to connect to divine consciousness. This is the divine spark that has all the interface allowing us to function in this world. And usually it's the soul is the one that we approach in therapy. We should approach in therapy the first to check if it's okay, if it's whole, if it's cleansed, if it has all the structures integrated, because the soul is not only here, the soul is spread throughout the body, as I mentioned in the previous video. It's spread throughout every part of your body, and most of it is concentrated within the heart area. But when you have an illness, when you are getting sick, when you have a physical imbalance, it means that part of your soul has been missing for quite some time, because we can lose parts of our soul through grief, sadness, anger, maybe even through love when we project. So be aware of the integrity of your soul. And then we have the inner self that also handles the main subtle structures of the body, from etheric layers, and I don't mean energetic fields generated by the chakras, I mean about the etheric layers, the shadow self, the inner child, the masculine and feminine. So there's a whole lot going on for each and every level. So that's why these are not only chakras, these are more than chakras, these are indeed places of psychic consciousness. They are places of consciousness. They are psychic levels that handle different levels of consciousness, to be more precise. I'm trying to find my words. So Take that into account when practicing Reiki. That was the point. I could have said that faster, but I wanted you to understand what the role of these 3 centers of power is, and to even make you aware of their existence in case you didn't know. And I think that they should be studied more by not only Reiki teachers, but spiritual practitioners in general, because addressing the chakras is wonderful, and there are hundreds, maybe thousands of books around the internet and everywhere you can find books about chakras, which each one has their own point of view and has a perspective and has something to offer. But about these 3 centers, not too many people talk about, so I wanted to mention that. So consider placing your hands, staying a bit more on these hand positions when you are practicing Reiki for your whole body, not only for those 3 centers. That being said, you can experiment and see how it feels. Anyways, I don't want to make this video longer than it's needed. Thank you so much for being here and for staying until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that other Reiki enthusiasts can find content such as this one. Thank you once again for being here. Blessings to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Before you go, there's one last thing I want to share to support your Reiki journey. If you're struggling to find consistency in your Reiki practice, but the lack of guidance and support makes your mind drift, this message is for you. Without a clear rhythm, Reiki becomes something you want to do, but never follow through. Even a simple structure can lay the foundation for a healthy rhythm, take the pressure off, and allow the universal energy to flow freely. That's why I created the 21 Reiki Challenge, a free program where we get to practice Reiki together for 21 days. Over 2,000 Reiki enthusiasts took on the challenge to rebuild their habit and reconnect with universal life force energy. If you're ready to approach Reiki with intention and structure, click the link in the description below, sign up, and let's practice Reiki together. Join the 21 Reiki Challenge to seamlessly integrate Reiki into your daily life.